The Legend of the RMS Titanic, Part 4. RMS Titanic is doing her final adjustments before ready for sea trials and is almost ready to leave Belfast for Southampton on her maiden voyage. However, we will not be talking about her preparations in this video. In Part 4, we will be talking about the similarities between her and her sister ship. Yes, indeed. Titanic had an older sister, RMS Olympic, the lead ship of the Olympic-class liners. The class consisted of Olympic, Titanic, and a third ship, Gigantic, which would come into service later. However, in this video, we'll be talking about the similarities and differences between Olympic and Titanic and certain fictional liner. As I said in Part 2, Olympic and Titanic were built side by side. However, they were so big that the Harland and Wolff's gantries weren't enough to support the new ships. So, bigger gantries were built to withstand these precious, beautiful, gigantic ocean liners. Both Olympics and Titanic's keels were both made in 1909, which meant that they started constructing around the same time. However, undoubtedly, Olympic was built first. The two ships would be built side by side with each other, even though there will only be a handful of photos of both Olympic and Titanic together after they were completed. At the time of her launch, and to mark the special occasion of the lead ship of a new class of superliners, RMS Olympic was painted white, while Titanic, still in construction at this point. Olympic was launched on November 20th, 1911. However, even after being completed, Olympic overshadowed her younger, more famously to come, sister. First of all, Olympic's launch was actually filmed, while Titanic's launch in 1911 would just be a handful of photos. And unlike Olympic, who was painted white during her launch and her name in bright yellow letters, Titanic was painted black and her name didn't appear anywhere on her. Now I guess you're all wondering, Michael, why are you talking about Olympic when this is supposed to be a Titanic documentary? Well, to understand Titanic and her story, you have to understand Olympic and her story. Olympic was completed in 1911, and before her sea trials, she was open to the public. However, even after Titanic was launched, Olympic still overshadowed her younger sister and was open to the public again during Titanic's launching, which led less people to come to Titanic's launch to see Olympic. Olympic conducted her maiden voyage on May 11th, 1911. During her maiden voyage, Olympic would have made an impressive sight for many ships that sailed past her, as she was the largest ship in the world. 882 feet long, the same length as Titanic. However, she was the ship of her time, and until Titanic was completed, Olympic was the pride and joy of the White Star Line. And the passengers must have enjoyed the interiors of Olympic that will later be put on to Titanic. However, there would be a reason why Olympic and Titanic were photographed side by side with each other. On September 20th, 1911, while conducting her fifth voyage, Olympic collided with the cruiser R.M.S. Hawke. Olympic's damage was so bad, she was punctured in two places, in her starboard section and in her propeller shaft, leaving it twisted. She had two holes, one being penetrated at the surface, one below the waterline. However, other than that, she was able to stay afloat with only two compartments flooded. Hawke, however, who was a bit smaller than Olympic, had suffered severe bow damage and nearly capsized. However, she somehow managed to limp back to port under her own steam. Initially, it was thought that Hawke was the cause of the collision. However, after much investigation, the Board of Trade found something that shocked them. It was discovered that due to Olympic's large size, her displacement water had sucked the Hawk into her side, causing the collision. The fault was put on Olympic. However, her commander was even more shocking. Edward John Smith, the Commodore of the White Star Line. He would later be in command of Olympic's younger sister, RMS Titanic, the year later. However, I'll get to that later. Thanks to the current competition with Cunard, Olympic had to be repaired fast. She was taken into Belfast for quick repair. This caused cannibalism of parts of Titanic to be put onto Olympic, enabling Titanic somewhat unremovable. But I'll get to that later. Olympic surviving the collision helped the people realize that the Olympic class were unsinkable, a false security. However, again, in February 1912, Olympic will be involved in another accident. This time she lost propeller blade. She had to be fixed, and again, parts were cannibalized from both Olympic and from Titanic onto Olympic. But let's get on with the similarities between these two ships. Now, on the outside and inside, Olympic and Titanic look very similar. They're both 882 feet long. However, their tonnage was quite different. Olympic's tonnage was 45,324 tons. Titanic was 46,328 tons. That's 4 tons heavier than Olympic. This gave Titanic the title of the biggest ship in the world. However, on the outside, you can clearly see a difference from Olympic and Titanic. Can't you tell? I'll give you a couple of seconds. Now, you see how Olympic's promenade deck is completely open? Titanic's promenade deck was partially enclosed. You can tell right off the bat. You can see Olympic's promenade deck is different than Titanic's promenade deck. This gives them distinct features that would differ from each other. Now, the reason for this was because of Olympic's experiences in storms in 1912, gave her the ability, decided to enclose partially the promenade deck on Titanic. If they had done it to Olympic, the ships would have been completely similar. Another difference was that one of the promenade decks was completely taken off Titanic due to adding of cabins and a French cafe. Other than that, Olympic had 16 lifeboats, the same configuration as Titanic would later have in 1912. However, as I said before, Olympic would overshadow her sister until April 15, 1912. However, I'll get to that later. When Olympic arrived in New York on her main voyage, she was considered the biggest ship in the world and probably the most luxurious and safest. And just like her sister, she was deemed unsinkable. But Olympic's two mishaps had delayed Titanic's main voyage from the 20th of March to April 10th, the year where icebergs would consider break off the glaciers and head down to Labrador Current into North Atlantic shipping lanes. J. Bruce Ismay and the rest of White Star knew none of this. So the differences of Olympic and Titanic were the partially enclosed promenade decks, the French cafe, and 20 cabins put on Titanic that were not on Olympic. However, there's another ship that we should talk about. This ship is fictional, but she has an extremely resemblance to the story and sinking of the RMS Titanic. This ship was in Futility, or Wreck of the Titan, and this ship was named the SS Titan. Now, right off the bat, you can easily tell that this ship has an extreme resemblance to RMS Titanic, except for a few differences. One, she has a yacht-like design, and she has the funnels that of a Cunard liner. Now, just like Titanic 14 years later, the fictional Titan is a White Star liner. However, she operates like a Cunard liner, with the music rooms, etc. That would not be found on any White Star liner. Also, Titan was depicted to have sails, and even though Titanic was built to carry both passengers and crew and cargo, Titan was only built to carry passengers and no cargo. She was basically built for speed, a little resemblance to a Cunard liner. On her third voyage, unlike Titanic's maiden voyage, Titan was on her third voyage when she struck a sailing ship, sinking it. However, Titan suffered little to no damage. Later on in the novel, it is later learned that Titan struck an iceberg and sank. However, her sinking was very dramatically changed than Titanic's real sinking 14 years later. First of all, Titan nearly fell onto her side by the iceberg and sank within 5 minutes. The total survivors? 13. If this story happened in real life, this would be absolutely horrifying. Titan was basically named after a god, the Titans, just like Titanic would be 14 years later. I can't just find out the similarities between these two ships. Their sinkings, the fact that they were claimed to be unsinkable, the fact they have many lives lost, they didn't have the right number of lifeboats, 3 propellers, 4 funnels. What do you think? Is this just a coincidence, or was there something mysterious about the SS Titan and RMS Titanic conspiration? Another difference was that Titan was 800 feet long, 82 feet less than Titanic's of 882 feet. I will explain later some differences between SS Titan and RMS Titanic later in the documentary when it's the right time to expose them. What do you guys think? Is this all just a coincidence, or is there a conspiracy going on between SS Titan and RMS Titanic? 14 years after the wreck of the Titan, or for utility as it was originally called, was made, Titanic would set sail on her main voyage, delayed by Olympics 2 mishaps. This would cause complete disaster. But that's a story for another day. Now, let's hear the whistles of the Olympic-class sisters, Olympic and Titanic. After the collision, Hawk was sunk in 1914 by the German submarine U-9. What was the mystery between the SS Titan and RMS Titanic? We'll probably never know.